The moral of the story here is that good men very rarely become great men, and great men are very rarely good men. So obviously, you guys have seen what is going on with Diddy. I, for one, I wasn't surprised. I don't follow celebrities, that closely, but based on what I've seen of Diddy, he strikes me as a theatrical nigga. In the Kendrick versus Drake ride along video that I did, I talked about how our community has been enamored with celebrity culture, in my opinion, more so than other communities, without realizing that the people who make it in the celebrity world tend to be theatrical, larger than life, the world is my oyster, first player energy type of people. And, it's really not far-fetched to think that those people may be narcissistic, may be solipsistic, may live life in a way that almost disqualifies them from being considered good. And I don't know if we have the conversation enough because, oftentimes, even with our women, I don't know why he's honking his horn. Even with our women, a lot of the things that they are saying that they want men to be, I want him to be thoughtful and nice and all that good stuff. That's not the behavior that's being rewarded. That's not the behavior that's being celebrated. And this isn't unique to women, right? History, fortunately or unfortunately, does not remember good people, right? I know a couple years ago, B. Simone went viral because she said Martin Luther King is not a good man because he used to cheat on Coretta. And, or she said he's not a great man, I'm sorry. And even though it's ridiculous, I do think it's worth a conversation, right? I think since we're now in the Me Too era, we are digging up the histories and trying to get a better idea of the disposition of men in particular that we consider great. And we're finding that oftentimes those people were not good, right? And, I think American history in particular is a testament to that. You can't divorce George Washington, the founder of America, from the fact that he owned slaves. Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, who even emancipated the slaves, he didn't do it because he was a good person. He did it for political expediency, right? So I think that as a people generally, I think we are far too idealistic when it comes to human nature, right? Even when it comes to the military, for instance, for America to maintain its power and to maintain the peace that we enjoy, there are some men who have to make very evil decisions, right? And giving those decisions to other men, our military, to carry out. If you study the history, America has been behind coups in other countries. America has helped overthrow certain leaders for reasons that might have been advertised one way, but were actually because of another thing entirely, for the benefit of America, for the benefit of, even certain things for the benefit of white people in particular. So again, we can't be so moralistic that we lose the plot, right? So going back to Diddy, like I said, I wasn't surprised. His personality type is a personality type that our community in particular celebrates. So we can't be surprised when it's exposed to also have these very dark tendencies. Unfortunately, even going more specifically, his personality type is also a personality type that tends to do really, really well with women, right? So I'm not even like super on the bandwagon of looking at Cassie, for instance, as a victim. Yes, she is a victim, right? However, we also must have the conversation about the part, the role, the how complicit we can be in our own exploitation. And I mean this as black people generally, right? As women particularly, right? There is some complicity in exploitation. Right? And kind of like I said, a lot of times, we suffer from Stockholm syndrome. With women, like you'll see certain women talk about, my ex was abusive and, maybe even physically abusive. And then when you start checking her history, her ex was abusive. The dude before that was abusive. The dude before that was abusive. And for me, I like to think about it one of two ways. Either number one, you suffered from abuse as a child, which normalized abuse for you, and which now causes you to gravitate to people who are familiar to you, right? You might call them your type, but these are abusive individuals or people with the proclivity to be abusive, right? So there is complicity, right? And we don't like to talk about it because it's called victim blaming. Or, even more insidious in my opinion, you have some scenarios where this person, again, coming from trauma, where abuse is your normal, you might encounter another person who is not inherently abusive, but human beings are human beings. We all have the capacity for things that you might be surprised of. You might even surprise yourself. And because that person is accustomed to a certain type of man, a certain type of woman, over time, after certain scenarios that happen, that other person is transformed into a man or woman that is more consistent with the men or women that the abused person is familiar with. And now the person becomes an abuser. Right? And again, these are things that we don't like to talk about. For instance, right now the trend is talking about how black women who date white men transform the white men into better looking versions of themselves. Like you'll see the side-by-side picture before a black woman and after a black woman. And the main difference is he grew a beard, he goes to a black barber now, and he dresses a little bit more urban, right? So if those things can happen, if we're considering that a positive transformation, negative transformations can be initiated by your partner as well, and which is another reason why you have to be careful while vetting a potential partner. Because you inherently might not be an abuser, you might not have ever raised a finger to any of your exes, but you meet a woman who is familiar with that type of tit for tat, who's familiar with that type of relationship dynamic, and you might be surprised in a few months, in a few years, the man that she exposes you to be. Right? You start asking yourself, was I this guy the entire time? Or was I poisoned? So in Cassie's scenario, obviously I don't know these people personally. These are just celebrities, so it's all speculative. It is very seldom the case where one person is just the overt aggressor and the other person is just a damsel in distress. Obviously, in our society, we only fixate on the man because we physically are capable of doing more damage. But the reality in a lot of those scenarios, especially when it's sustained over years and years and years, it's so much more complicated. And again, I do think Diddy is a piece of shit. But I don't think he's uniquely a piece of shit. I think most theatrical niggas are pieces of shit. Because again, the Faustian bargain, and I use this term a lot, with certain good things come bad things. One of the episodes of The Table, a clip that went viral was when I mentioned that women who are, too beautiful, if that's a thing, right? Women, eights, nines, and tens tend to be terrible partners, right? Does that mean that every 8, 9, and 10 is a terrible partner? No. That just means that because you are blessed in this particular way, you might not have to develop personality. You might not have to develop social skills. You might not have to be interesting because you are captivating just based on your aesthetics, just based on the genetics that your parents gave you that you didn't have to work for. Now, unfortunately, people in general, our community in particular, behaves as if genetics are a virtue, right? A taller man is a better man. A beautiful woman is a better woman for a thing that they didn't have to work for a thing that they were just given. But oftentimes we don't have the conversation about, is this valid? Is this a mature paradigm for us to maintain? And then when it comes out, when what's done in the dark comes out, and we find out, oh, this celebrity was actually a piece of shit behind closed doors, we act surprised. Now, I want to kind of parlay this into this whole ick list that's going viral. This list of women or things that women are saying on video that gave them the ick. Maybe a thing that a dude that they're dating did, or a thing that they observed just some guy do, and they're like, I didn't realize that'd give me the ick. And there's even a page on Instagram. He's actually compiling these things. And it turns out men can't lick ice cream, men can't wear flip-flops, just ridiculous things. And I think it's funny. I think it's hilarious, but I think that, unfortunately, some of us men are taking that shit way too serious. This is going to sound counterintuitive as shit, but y'all need to stop giving a shit what women think. Because the reality is women don't even give a shit what women think. Like I talked about in my last ride-along with the Pop the Balloon series, one of the things you observe while watching these shows is the reason why she rejects man A, man B might possess the same exact thing, but she likes man B. Like I said, you'll see episodes, I usually don't like dreadheads. And the person they match with, or the person that they're enthusiastic about potentially matching with, is a dreadhead. They'll pop a balloon for one dude because he has kids, and then the dude that she likes has kids. So women are inconsistent when it comes to logic as it pertains to love and companionship. That's one thing you need to understand. So when they say things like, I go off of vibes and shit like that, that's real. They do. They go off of vibes, and vibes are unquantifiable. Vibes don't mean anything. Vibes don't necessarily make sense. So instead of taking down all her likes and dislikes and making sure y'all are compatible and shit like that, my advice and what I do, I'm just myself. If something I do gives you the ick, that's your business. I remember I saw it was like a meme on Instagram a while back, and this dude was, or a dude or a girl was talking about how either he had to turn down his music when he came to pick her up because he likes to listen to jazz, but she doesn't like jazz. My perspective is, if the bitch don't like jazz, you shouldn't be riding with her. And I think as men, that's one thing that's so unfortunate about us. Because we're so visual, we don't take the time to actually consider if we actually like this woman. If she actually likes us. If we actually have anything in common past sexual attraction. And I'm saying this as somebody who's been there, and it's a mistake that I've made far too many times. The reality, unfortunately, ends up being that you really don't like this individual. This individual really don't like you. But You're attracted to each other, but you go on exciting dates and trips and all kinds of cool stuff. So you associate them with the cool stuff that you guys do together versus associating them with if you guys are compatible. And I tell women all the time, like this idea, if a man wants you, he's gonna apply pressure, and the man who applies the most pressure is the man who I want to be with. And it's when you really sit down and think about it, it's idiotic, right? Because if your price essentially is the relative level of pressure that's applied, you're essentially a prostitute. You're essentially pawning yourself up to the highest bidder. And maybe the bid is he has more time to spend than another man. Maybe the bid is he has more money to spend than the other man. Whether he earned that money legitimately, illegitimately, whether it's money that was given to him, these aren't things that are considered. It's about theatrics. It's about who can tap dance the best for my affection. Who can say all the right things, do all the right things. Like I remember seeing a clip, I think it was going viral on TikTok a while back, but two female friends were having a conversation about one of the best dates that they had been on. And they were talking about it and realized it was the same exact date. And then they realized it was the same exact dude. But what they didn't realize is when you keep creating these theatrical, larger-than-life romantic expectations of men, men are going to turn it into a formula. And if it worked on woman one, it's more than likely going to work on woman two. I think he was going to cook. He was going to do like a paint and sip. They were going to go to a museum. And he just rinsed and repeated. Shout out to the brother, man. But again, instead of learning from these things, unfortunately, women tend to be more enthusiastic about simply the experience rather than the compatibility and the companionship. So at the end of the day, like I always say, these are the men that you're going to see more of. Because there are some men, whether because they were raised by single mothers, whether because they were heartbroken early on in life, whether, first-hand heartbreak or second-hand heartbreak, they observe some shit, and they figure out the game, they figure out the formula, and they play the game, right? And then women complain about them, but there's really nothing to complain about because you continue to reward that behavior. And even the guys who might not have been heartbroken, might come from good homes, might actually be decent partners at their core, they are going to familiarize themselves with what works. And if they're intelligent, they're going to implement those things. And that goes for romance with women. That goes for finances. That goes for corporate America. Good people do not always win. Good people very seldomly win. And like I said in the beginning, good people very seldomly become great people. And I think as men in particular, it's this fine line we have to walk because, part of masculinity, it's unfortunate, but oftentimes you're not celebrated until you die. I think as a man, you have to prioritize how you're going to be remembered, not necessarily how you make people feel in the moment. Because some of the things you might have to do as a man, some of the things you might have to say as a man, some of the moves you might have to make might not be good ones, right? They might not be good ones. So, moral of the story, stop listening to women. They don't know what the hell they're talking about, particularly as it pertains to what masculinity is or what healthy masculinity is. They don't know. They speculate, they assume, and they're very idealistic with their assumptions. And the other piece is, sometimes what must be done, what has to be done, isn't always a good thing, and that's something you have to come to terms with. Consult mentors, consult the Lord if you're religious, and pay attention. There's a reason why Diddy is as famous and as successful as he is, and those reasons are very closely related to all the reasons why he's about to go the way of R. Kelly and, you know, Bill Cosby and Epstein and all those men. Good men are very seldom, or great men, I'm sorry, are very seldom good men. And yeah, I think this is worth more of a conversation. Why are women so attracted to psychopaths and sociopaths? Even you watch these even it was the serial killer thing on Netflix, Jeffrey Dahmer, right? You read the stats on the viewers of these shows about serial killers and movies about serial killers. It's predominantly women. Women in particular are enamored with violent men, as counterintuitive as it sounds. You know. Additionally, I think one of the types of narcissists are called dark empaths. And like I said, those men tend to do really good with women as well. And these are questions women are going to have to ask themselves. I know I heard one theory. I think I was watching Joe Rogan, and they said that the reason why violent men do so well with women is because women know innately that my proximity to this violent man is going to be, is going to guarantee me some type of safety, right? Like if I'm cool with him, I'm safe. And he can kill everybody else and I'm protected also. And you know how important protection is for women. So yeah, man, leave in the comments your thoughts. Like this, share, subscribe. I'm about to head to the airport. I'm leaving Miami, heading back to my humble abode, heading back to work tomorrow. So yeah, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.